Hey, y'all. I told y'all this was going to be a cliffhanger. Well, I'm serious. I'm warning y'all, this is this cliffhanger. These prophet people are perverts. I said it. Okay. Now I warned you. I'm going to get them X's off there, but don't forget it. I'm going to have to show it again. No. Just this one. All right, now. My paper printed out funny. It stopped me, but. All right. You've been warned. It's a little. I warn y'all again. You're scared of it, leave. Okay. Where shall I begin? Just where I left off. Just before Thanksgiving, Jeffrey took me out to the farm we had rented. He had left the kids at my mom's, and he had told me that we were going out there to be alone and make love. I went along with him because I want him to be happy, but I was not prepared for what was about to happen. After they went into the farmhouse, Jeffrey told Alice to go upstairs and take a bath. While she was still in the tub, Jeffrey walked. Here's where we left off before. Jeffrey walked in naked. He told her to open the drain and let the water out. But he ordered her to stay in the tub. He then stepped into the tub so that he was facing her feet. According to Alice, Jeffrey bent down over her and defecated onto her breast. That is not romantic. I discovered that Jeffrey was fascinated with his own feces, Alice later told investigators and her psychologist. He told me that he had been using it since he was 13. He would smear it on himself to masturbate with. Oh my God. That should turn you against doing it, I'm just saying. After Jeffrey rubbed feces on Alice's breast, they had intercourse and then bathed together. She said, "It wasn't that I was cold and uncaring," Alice explained. "It's just that I didn't want to do all the things that he wanted me to do. I knew that my role as a wife was to satisfy him, and I wanted to do that and make him happy. But after we moved to the farm, he not only wanted to smear his feces on me, he got so he liked holding me down and putting it on my face." That's wrong. Oh my God. It's so wrong. It was too much. Yeah, it was. So I began telling him, no, that is not what it, that is what made him angry, and that is what caused all the fights. Jeffrey refused. Let's see. I hope I haven't lost my place again. Jeffrey refused during interviews to discuss his sexual practices with Alice. He considered their sexual life to be private. All he would say was that he had never done anything with Alice that she didn't want to do. Later, when he was specifically asked if he had smeared feces on Alice, Jeffrey became upset. "That is an outright lie," he said. "That is not part of my lifestyle." He accused Alice of making up stories about their sex life in order to win sympathy for himself. He had never abused or engaged in any unusual sexual acts with her, he said. The prophet. Shortly after Thanksgiving, Jeffrey began coming home late from work at night. He told Alice that he was taking a night class at the hospital so that he could become an emergency medical technician. Alice didn't seem to mind until one Wednesday in December. Alice didn't have a washing machine or clothes dryer at the rental house. So once a week, usually on Wednesday night, Jeffrey drove her to Max Creek to the laundromat. He dropped her off and go to his night class at the hospital and return to take her home. On one particular night, Alice finished the laundry and waited for Jeffrey, but he didn't show up on time. She waited another hour and then called the hospital. Is the class still in session? Alice asked. The nurse, whom Alice knew, was confused. The nurse whom Alice knew was confused. There was no night class being taught at the hospital, she replied. Alice tried to hide her embarrassment. Oh, I must have been mistaken, she said. Alice didn't know what to do, so she waited another hour and then finally called Donna. That's her mom. They drove to the rental house together. Jeffrey wasn't there. Donna took everyone home with her. The next day, Alice borrowed her mother's car and she and Kristen drove to the farm. Jeffrey answered the door. What's going on? Alice demanded. Why didn't you pick me up at the... Before she could finish, Jeffrey slammed the door. She beat on it with one hand for several minutes until Kristen began to cry, and then she drove back to her parents' house. I didn't know what was going on. She later said, I knew he was mad at me because of our sex life, and he didn't want to tell me that's what was the matter. What a dumb woman. I'm sorry. Allegedly. Alice and the kids spent Thursday at the Keeler's. On Friday morning, Jeffrey called. He wanted to take Alice and the kids to McDonald's for hamburgers that night after work. He said he wanted to talk to Alice about their marriage and whether she was willing to become a good, subservient wife. Alice dressed the boys in their best outfits and put ribbons in Kristen's hair. All of them waited in the living room. 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, around 9 o'clock, Alice put the children to bed. There's an ant on my desk. Around 9 o'clock, Alice put the children to bed, and she and her sister Terry went out to find Jeffrey. His truck was parked at the hospital, but he was gone. The following morning, Alice again drove to the farm in her mother's car looking for Jeffrey, and he hadn't been there. It looked as if he had spent the night somewhere else. She sat down in the kitchen and wrote him a long letter. In it, she apologized. She apologized for being, in her own words, such a bad wife. She was sorry that she had made his life so miserable that she couldn't satisfy him sexually or be obedient as the scriptures demanded. She, I hope I haven't lost the next page, begged him for forgiveness and finished the letter by asking him not to hate or leave her. Oh my God. By asking... I felt that I had caused this entire mess, she recalled. Not only had I displeased Jeffrey, but I also disobeyed God because I had not been subservient to my husband. On Monday morning, Jeffrey pulled into the Keeler's driveway. He hadn't talked to Alice for 3 days. He simply disappeared. He told Alice that he needed to speak with her in private. They went for a walk. Where have you been? She asked. Jeffrey said he had spent the weekend in Springfield, about 50 miles from Max Creek, in a motel with a woman who also worked at the hospital. He said the woman wanted to marry him. Another dumb woman. You're having an affair? Alice later remembered asking. No, Jeffrey said. I was going to, but I didn't. Jeffrey explained that he and the woman had ended up just staying in separate rooms and that she had wanted to make love with him, but he had been physically incapable of having sex because I'm still in love with you, Alice, and I couldn't consider breaking our marriage vows. Oh my God. This man is so manipulative, and these women are so brainwashed to just fall for this nutty stuff. Alice was stunned. I knew he was angry with me, but I didn't know he was seeing another woman. He told me that he had gone with her because he was so unhappy with me and because I wouldn't do what he wanted. He said she told him that he was masculine and macho and everything that a woman wanted in a man, and she had offered herself to him, and that he felt good about that because that is how a woman is supposed to act. Well, that explains me. Oh, no, no, you do not have to act like that. But that he didn't love her, he still loved me. So even though that woman wanted to do all kind of tricks for him, he still wanted Alice. Oh my God. Years later, Jeffrey repeated much of the same story in an interview. I got involved with this woman at work because I was sexually frustrated. It wasn't love. She had her own problems. I had mine. It was nothing but animal heat. But I felt so guilty that I just couldn't do anything. And then I confessed everything to Alice. Jeffrey told Alice that he wasn't going to answer any questions about the Springfield trip. He just wanted her to know that she had driven him to do it. He is so manipulative and abusive. He blamed me totally and considered himself a hero because he had turned down this woman. Alice said incredibly. Alice thanked Jeffrey for not committing adultery and for not leaving her and the children. Jeffrey then drove all of them back to the rental house. When it was time for bed that night, Jeffrey told her that he wanted to make love to her. He pointed towards the bathroom. Oh my Lord, y'all. I'll draw your bath, Jeffrey told her. Alice said later that she understood what he wanted. She followed him into the bathroom and disrobed without complaint. This is so terrible. The next day, after Jeffrey went to work, Alice telephoned her parents and told them how Jeffrey had spent his weekend. Ralph Keeler was angry. Was Alice really so naive that she didn't believe that Jeffrey had spent a weekend in a motel with another woman and never touched her sexually? Drop that son of a bitch, he told his daughter. Divorce him. I've got to say, that's the first sensible thing I've read. Donna was more conciliatory. Oh my God, I wish her name wasn't Donna. You decided to marry him, not me, and I'm not going to make a decision on whether you should break up your marriage, she said. That's up to you. That was not helpful, Mom. Then she asked her daughter if she still loved Jeffrey. Yes, said Alice. Besides, she added, who else would take me? I have a baby and 2 boys. I'm 28 years old. Man, she acts like she's an old lady, don't she? All that week, Alice and Jeffrey avoided talking about the tryst. But on Friday afternoon, while Jeffrey was at work, his girlfriend called and boldly asked Alice to give Jeffrey a message. Tell him I can't go away with him this weekend, she said. Alice slammed down the receiver. When Jeffrey got home, she screamed at him, and Jeffrey got angry. I can't believe you believe her, he snapped. She is making all this stuff up because I wouldn't have sex with her. It's all a lie. She's trying to get even with me. Alice was caught off guard. Do you think she could call you if she wasn't angry and jealous? He continued. Jeffrey explained. Seemed Jeffrey's explanation seemed to make sense, at least to Alice. I believed him. I honestly believed that they hadn't gone to bed together. On Monday, Alice decided it was time for her to turn the tables. As soon as Jeffrey left for work, she telephoned the hospital and asked to speak to the woman. Why are you bothering my husband? She yelled. Why are you making this stuff up? Is it because Jeffrey ditched you because he didn't want to have sex with you? Is that what he told you? The woman said mockingly in her steady voice. She then recited the names of the motels and times and dates that she and Jeffrey had been together, and then she added, She told me that Jeffrey had taught her She told me that Jeffrey had taught her how to have oral sex. Alice recalled the way she described it and the words she used. She was using Jeff's vocabulary. Mm-mm-mm. I knew she was telling me the truth because they were the words he had used to teach me how to have oral sex. Oh my God, I hope I'm not saying that loud. She wasn't she wasn't lying. I knew that he had been the one telling the lies. All right. Lord help me. Hope my old mama in there didn't hear me all reading that loud, nasty stuff. Alice hung up and grabbed a phone book. She called each one of the motels and asked the clerks if a Jeffrey Lundgren had been a guest on the dates that had been quoted her. Every one of them told me that he had checked in and that he would use his real name. He didn't even try to hide it. Everything that she told me was true. Alice dialed the long distance number of her friend Louisa Stone and told her about Jeffrey's affair. I drove him to it, she said between sobs. I am not as sexually active as he wants me to be. If only had done what he wanted and accepted it, then Jeffrey wouldn't have to look elsewhere. At this point, Alice didn't mention Jeffrey's fascination with feces. She was too embarrassed. She simply told Louisa that Jeffrey wasn't happy with her attitude towards sex. Alice told me that she had decided that to make Jeffrey happy, back up. Alice told me that she had decided that to make Jeffrey happy, she was going to become a very sexual partner. Louisa Stone said later. She said she didn't know whether she could do it or not, but she said that she was going to convince Jeffrey that whatever he wanted was okay, and even if she couldn't enjoy it, I felt she was trying her best to become what Jeffrey wanted her to become sexually. So, this is going to turn bad, y'all. Jeffrey got home, and Alice told him she thought it was best if they never mentioned the affair again. Well, that's pretty cool of you, Alice. She said that she forgave him, and for 2 weeks she reclaimed me, and I reclaimed her, and we had good sexual relationship. Jeffrey said she did what wives are supposed to do and submitted her will to me. But the second honeymoon didn't last long. On a night in February, Jeffrey told Alice to put the children to bed early and come to bed. There was something new that he wanted to teach her. Okay, I better put up my X's. Cover your eyes and ears, whatever you do. Okay. He wanted to try to teach her something new. Jeffrey came up with 2 glasses and a bottle of cherry vodka, and I was shocked because we didn't drink. But he told me he wanted me to drink some Coke and cherry vodka, so we began drinking. While we sat on the bed, Jeffrey asked Alice what it was like to be a woman during sex. Not head to good, y'all. He was curious about what it felt like. What was it like for a woman to have an orgasm? Oh my God. I'm glad I got the X's up still. How did it feel? Oh gosh. I hope I can read this next sentence, and I hope my mama don't hear me read it. Jeffrey asked Alice, how did it feel to have a penis thrust inside her? I was getting pretty drunk, and he told me he wanted me to do something different. I should have took some drinks before I read this, okay? He told me he wanted me to give him a bath and wash his hair, which I did. Then he had me to comb it and set it in rollers. He had me to clean and file his fingernails and toenails and then polish them. This don't sound so bad, does it? So let's take this back down. Maybe. It's getting pedicure and a manicure. Doesn't sound... Okay. He had me clean and file his fingernails and toenails and then polish them. Then he asked me for one of my nightgowns and he put it on. He asked me to shave his legs, and I did. He put on a pair of my pantyhose, and I was pretty drunk by this time. He decided to model for me, so I put makeup, women's makeup on his face, and took out his hair rollers. All this time, he was telling me to drink this vodka and Coke, and I was really getting drunk. I was sloppy drunk, and then he pulled this package out from under the bed. All right, now maybe I better put my X's back up. Back up there, X's. I'm going to start with this part again. Okay. He's got the makeup on and the pantyhose and all that. Okay. I was sloppy drunk, and then he pulled this package out from under the bed, and he said he wanted to show it to me. He opened it up and took out okay. I was sloppy drunk, and then he pulled a package out from under the bed, and he said he wanted to show it to me. He opened it up and took out a dildo and a leather harness, and I thought, yeah, me too, lady. My God, what is he gonna do to me? Oh my God. But he told me that the harness was for me to wear, and he wanted me to put on the dildo, and he wanted me to have sex with him. I should have never stopped reading because I don't know if I'll get through this. He wanted me to have anal intercourse with him, and it was supposed to be rape. I said, no. I said, Jeffrey, this is too weird. I may be drunk, but I'm not going to do that. He said, oh, yes, you are. And we started arguing, and that's when I decided just to get out of the bedroom. So I went down the hallway, and he came after me. He said, you're going to do what I tell you to do. And I said, oh, no, I am not. He said, well, then I'll get someone else who will. And I was drunk and furious, and I yelled at him. I said, oh, you're going to get your hospital whore? He said, yeah, she'll do it for me. I yelled, you son of a bitch. I went for his throat and I dug my fingernails into his neck. I wanted to hurt him. I'm sure glad I got all this stuff up back here against this bad again. That. I dug my fingernails into his neck. I wanted to hurt him. Hurt him so bad. Hurt him like he hurt me. I was so angry. I mean, I tried and I tried to get him to tell me that he was sorry about having an affair, and he always refused. He always said, I'm not going to grovel in the dirt for you, Alice. It's your fault that it happened. I'm so furious about everything, the lies, the affair, everything. So I grabbed him around the throat and tried to hurt him, and he grabbed me and pulled me off. And when he did, he threw me against the wall, and my back hit the doorknob right in the middle of my back. I remember just going limp with pain and sliding down the wall. I remember the pain was excruciating. I crawled into the bathroom and I locked the door. I passed out. I tried to take the hinges off and was yelling at me to unlock the door, but I wouldn't, and I passed out. Jeffrey later recalled the confrontation in the hallway differently. He did not mention anything about the sexual encounter or the dildo. One night, I went downstairs to get something to eat, and when I got back upstairs, she was waiting for me at the door of our bedroom with a baseball bat. She was enraged about the affair, almost catatonic. She went into an angry tirade. She swung at me with the baseball bat and missed, and I caught her with my arms and picked her up. I didn't have any feelings of anger. She claims that I threw her against the doorknob, but that isn't true. She didn't hit anything when I tossed her back. A few days later, she slipped while she was walking down the stairs and fell and hit her head. That's how she got hurt. No one except for Alice and Jeffrey knows what happened, but the result is documented in the medical records at the Lake of Ozarks Hospital. Regardless of the cause, Alice's spleen was ruptured and began leaking blood. The injury went unnoticed for 2 weeks until Alice collapsed and lost consciousness one morning while visiting Jeffrey at the hospital. He carried her into the emergency room where doctors recovered massive internal bleeding and operated to remove her spleen. Twice during surgery, Alice almost died. Poor Alice. Jeffrey's parents came down from Independence to the farm to take care of the children while Alice was in the hospital. By the end of March, Alice was released, but her medical problems were far from over. She developed a series of painful complications and remained bedfast. One night, when she was laying in bed, half asleep, under heavy medication, Jeffrey had sexual intercourse with her. She was so groggy that she thought it was a dream at first. A few weeks later, she discovered that she was pregnant again. Alice, who was still taking large doses of painkillers, was terrified. She was afraid the drugs might hurt her baby. Jeffrey, meanwhile, was facing his own worries. He had written bad checks to several merchants. Some of the checks had been written on accounts that had been closed months earlier. Other checks were from accounts that contained no money. Merchants tipped off Donna. A local businessman was so angry that he was going to ask the county attorney to prosecute Jeffrey. I went over and paid the checks, Donna recalled later. I collected quite a few of them. We do quite a bit of business with these people, and we live here. Credit was extended to Jeffrey and Alice because of us, and I felt morally obligated to not leave them hanging. One merchant heard that Donna was paying Jeffrey's bad checks and began calling her at home. The calls began every night. None of the checks that Jeffrey was writing was for more than $30, most of them for gasoline, milk, and other groceries. But as quickly as Donna paid them, he wrote more. Within a month, she had depleted what little savings that she and Ralph had, and she decided to confront her son in law. Oh, I guess I can take down the X's now. I hope I can take down the X's. Jeff, you've got to stop doing this, she said. This is the third time that I have to go around and got these checks for you, and we can't afford it anymore. He didn't respond. If you got many more floating around here, you better make them good, because the prosecutor comes down real hard on bad checks around here. Jeffrey nodded, but he didn't follow her advice. He wrote another bad check to his landlord. The Lundgrens had lived at the Wilcox farm for nearly 1 year, yet had paid only 2 months' rent. Wilcox started eviction procedures. Once again, Jeffrey and Alice and their children were forced to move in with Ralph and Donna. The Wilcox had felt bad that he decided to evict the Lundgrens, but when he visited the farmhouse after they were gone, whatever sympathy he had for the family vanished. The first thing he noticed was that Jeffrey had broken into the garage where the Wilcox had stored their personal belongings. Jeffrey had taken several items, had been using them inside the house. As soon as the Wilcox stepped through the back door of his house, Wilcox's heart sank. The place was a wreck. It looked like a tornado had sucked up everything and thrown it around. He suddenly smelled this pungent odor coming from the basement. Wilcox walked downstairs and nearly gagged. For some reason, Jeffrey had used a saw to cut through the pipe that drained the toilet. There was toilet paper and feces on the basement floor, just like in an outhouse. Wilcox recalled there was a pile of human waste at least a foot deep and 6 feet in diameter. Covering my mouth, Wilcox hurried up to the kitchen. How could someone live with this filth in the basement, he wondered. Why would Jeffrey have done such a thing? Why would someone want a pile of feces in the basement? Wilcox went through the entire house looking for damage. There was plenty. Holes were knocked in the walls, carpets were stained and filthy. When he reached the master bedroom and upstairs, Wilcox found something else he thought was curious. Yep. Wilcox found something else he thought was curious. Inside one of the closets were stacks of pornographic magazines that Wilcox later described as, I hope I can even know what this word is, sadomasochism and bondage publications. Something tossed into the corner of the closet caught his eye. Wilcox reached down and picked it up, but as soon as he realized what it was, he dropped it. It was a plastic dildo that was caked with feces. I mean, it was caked with it, Wilcox said. They hadn't washed it. They just tossed it in there. As he left the house, Wilcox couldn't help but wonder at the contradictions Jeffrey posed. He was radical in his religious beliefs. He was intensely conservative. And in one room of the house, he had left about every book you could think of about the RLDS religion. Whole book of those RLDS religion books. He had rows and rows of them. Yet upstairs, Wilcox found the opposite sort of literature. It was almost as if there was two different Jeffrey Lundgrens. That sounds like Chad Daybell on it. Supposed to be a prophet and a sexual deviant. Both extremes, one holy and one evil. He just wasn't operating from the same perspective that most people operate from. I have never met a person who wanted to be liked more than Jeffrey. I think I can take down the X's. I hope. I may put them back up. Oh. I have never met a person who wanted to be liked more than Jeffrey. He wanted to be liked. He wanted to be admired. Yet he didn't want to do anything to earn you liking him. At the same time, I also never knew anyone who thought so much of himself. It wasn't arrogance, it was an intense self importance. He simply looked up to himself as someone who was unique, special. He felt people needed to treat him special. On August 6th, Jeffrey came home from work and he announced that he had quit his job at the hospital and he had not and said anything that morning about quitting. He didn't have another job lined up. Alice was dumbfounded. She was 6 months pregnant and hadn't found another house to rent. Jeffrey still owed local merchants for bad checks. Why did you do it? She asked. What's wrong? I can make more money in independence, Jeffrey replied. Besides, they don't appreciate me at the hospital. Jeffrey wouldn't say anything more. Years later, Bernie Wilson recalled why Jeffrey really resigned. That morning at the hospital, he had walked in to an employee had walked into an office and caught Jeffrey and his girlfriend embracing. Jeffrey denied that he was having an affair, but he had been caught fondling this woman's breast, and there was little doubt in my mind of what they were up to, Wilson said. I didn't get him much choice but to quit. Jeffrey left for independence that morning, the morning after he resigned. He moved into an apartment with his brother Corey and told Alice that he would send her money whenever he could. During the 4 month period that Jeffrey was gone, he mailed her a total of $5. Alice later said in December, Alice went into labor and was taken to the Lake of the Ozarks hospital. Jeffrey drove down from Independence but was clearly uncomfortable at the hospital. Alice still didn't know the truth about why he had resigned. Jeffrey spent the night in his car in the parking lot rather than in the lobby. The next morning, Alice gave birth to a boy. I was so frightened that the drugs I had taken after my spleen was removed had harmed my baby. But the doctor said, Alice, he's got all of his fingers and toes. And I was so happy I started crying. You see, I had wondered why God had spared my life when my spleen ruptured. I should have died. My life was so miserable, but he spared me so I could give birth. I looked over at Jeffrey because I wanted him to tell him and share it with him, and I reached for his hand and he knocked it away. He was crying. I said, What's wrong? The baby's okay. He's okay. Jeffrey glared at me. He said, Yes, honey, it's a boy, said Jeffrey. Alice, I wanted a girl. Can't you do anything right? He turned around and he walked out. He left me there with my son and just walked out. God, what a prize he is. Alice named the boy Caleb, after Caleb, the son of Jephthah, mentioned in the Old Testament book of Numbers. I named him by myself. I chose the name Caleb because Caleb's in the Bible and hadn't been scared off by the adversary and run away from things. He had also told the truth when everyone else lied. The day after Caleb was born, Alice mentioned to the doctor that she wanted to get a tubal ligation. She didn't want any more children. He said, I don't think I can do that, the doctor replied. Alice asked why. He was certain that her insurance wouldn't cover the cost. What insurance? The doctor asked. I thought that our insurance had covered our medical bills, later explained, because Jeffrey had been covered by the hospital employee posse, he had told me that we were still covered by it. And even though he had quit, what I found out was that Jeffrey had taken me and the kids off the policy months earlier and been pocketing the extra cash that he saved. He owed the hospital thousands and thousands of dollars for my spleen, and they weren't going to do anything else for us until they were paid. When Donna came to visit her daughter in New Grants, she found Alice in tears. "Mama," Alice blurted out, "I married Jeffrey for better or worse, but it just keeps on getting worse and worse." Chapter 9 next.